Hi guys, so we are rounding up the podcast mini-series with my final special guest, which I am very excited to announce is the wonderful Ben Bridges that you may know from the YouTube channel This Messy Happy. But he also works with a couple of his friends to run a podcast called Fitness Freaks. So I spent a little bit of time chatting to him about that podcast, and you can check it out here. Well, I'll tell you what, before we start talking about the podcast, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are, and then anyone who watches my side can find out a bit more about you.
Okay. So I'm Ben Bridges. I've got a weird backstory really, because I've always run. I'm a Team GB. You would call yourself a Team GB age group triathlete, but actually I don't put any stock in that kind of stuff. I'm an idiot that exercises all of the time. Like, that's how I kind of feel about myself. I was growing up, I was a runner, but I was rubbish, as in I was always in the cross country team. I was in the athletics team at school, but I was one of those lads that, when I'm a PE teacher now, and I probably would look back and I'd be like, oh yeah, well, we'll put him in because he loves it. Like, I was one of those.
Yeah.
And I was really happy just to be there. And that kind of, I think in a weird way, that just fostered I have a resilient nature to running. I'm never bothered about times. I'm never bothered about speeds, nothing like that. I just love it. And so a few years ago, my wife and I set up a YouTube channel called This Messy Happy, which was basically, it started off weirdly as a journey about our not being able to have children and what we were going to try and do to leave our legacy. As soon as I started publishing some videos about us running and stuff like that, the kind of interest really grew really quickly. So we pivoted to more exercise side of our lives, which is, both of us run and I'm a triathlete. And so the podcast was the kind of natural next step, I think, in that I like long form stuff and I like being able to have a real meaty chat about stuff. And when you make videos on YouTube, it has to be a little bit more punchy, a little bit more clippy and stuff like that. So I wanted something that you can really dig into topics like, and a podcast was that natural progression really. So that's what got me to here.
Amazing. So your podcast is called Fitness Freaks?
Yes, that's me, Sam and George, two of my good mates.
So can you just kind of summarize roughly what your podcast is about?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's a journey in itself. We started out, our initial idea was that it would be a bit of a laugh. We would pick apart funny things that have happened in the week, and we'd like chat, almost like you feel like you're down the pub with your mates. That was what the aim that we were going for. And we've tried to hold true to that bit, but we quite quickly realized that we're more serious than we thought we were. So in the podcast, we would be sitting there, we would be absolutely enthralled by whoever was talking, and we'd be asking these in-depth questions, and we'd be trying to learn and learn and learn. And we quite quickly realized that initial concept that we came up with, that having a laugh and taking the mick, it wasn't what we wanted to be. We wanted to be three, George and Sam are phenomenal athletes. I am by far the oldest and worst of the three. Sam's been very near the pro ranks. George is trying to be a pro soon, both triathletes. And, they've got this thirst for knowledge and learning like me. So it just all clicked. And we wanted to just pick people's brains to try and help anyone that listened and help ourselves get better, really. So that's how it pivoted. It's all messy. That is basically my life.
So you kind of spoke about you like to kind of pull things together to help people learn. Would you say that's the big inspiration behind the podcast? Or would you say there was something else that inspired you to really kind of do it other than the natural gradation into it from the videos?
No, you nailed it straight away. Yeah. Like everything I do in my life is to try and help other people not need a coach like me. I want people to learn about running or triathlon or cycling, and I want them to learn about concepts like VO2 max or psychological stuff. And I just want to empty my head. That's why I'm a teacher as well, I think. It's just I've got this urge to just help people fulfill their own potential is how I've always seen it. And that's just kind of what I live for, is to give everything I've got as much as I can to help whoever, because it might change one person's life. In the course of my life, it may change one person's life, but that's enough. So that's why I do it.
Amazing. Okay, so the next question is, have you got any kind of main goals going forward for the podcast? Anything that you really want to try and achieve for it, or anyone you want to invite on, or kind of any big dreams?
That's a good question. I don't know if I have. Obviously, I want it to grow. I want, as with everything I do, I just want to reach more people. Nothing I ever do is financially orientated. I don't need any money. It sounds weird, but you know, my job as a teacher, I get paid all right. I don't mind. You know, I'm not doing anything for money. So, but at the same time, you realize you have to push the podcast, and you have to push the YouTube, and you have to push the Instagram purely to reach more people. And that's the side I've always struggled with. But yeah, that's why I'm doing it, is to reach as many people as possible. In terms of guests, it's another good question. I mean, just as I keep thinking about this, I've got this idea that maybe in the next series of the podcast, we go after potential Tokyo Olympians in the next few weeks, you know, but of niche sports, so that they would be easier to get on the podcast. Because, you know, we're not going to get your top athletes. We're not going to get, you know, Adam Peaty or anything like that. But we might get, you know, skateboarding is in the Olympics. You've got surfing, you've got climbing. And I was like, well, maybe it would be interesting to see what people go through to get to the Olympics. Might be the next big thing. But I think even people that are going to the Olympics are going to be tough to get on a podcast, to be honest with you. They're so busy.
Possibly, yeah. It definitely would be interesting. I must admit, I would be quite interested to find out what you would need to do with skateboarding to get to the Olympics. I mean, I'm shocking when it comes to that. I haven't touched a skateboard since I was about 12, and even then I was rubbish.
There's even surfing, you know. There's surfing in the Olympics, so that could be a really good shout.
That could be a really good shout. Definitely something to always something to try, whether you get there or not. You know, shoot for the moon, you'll land somewhere among the stars. Hopefully, anyway.
That's the aim, yeah.
So have you got out of the episodes you've done, have you got a favourite podcast episode? That one that you've kind of really enjoyed?
No and yes. There's been such a diverse range of guests already that I wouldn't say that there's a favourite, because also I also don't want to upset the guests. But, you know, I've had Rob Griffiths on the show, who is he was the lead tutor or one of the lead tutors of the level 3 triathlon coaching course that I was on. And the guy is just, the knowledge that he has, especially psychology stuff, is just, you sit there and you just listen. I just listened the whole podcast and I came away buzzing. But, you know, at the same time, we've had Tom Davis, who's a pro triathlete, on. We've had Simon Ward, who's he's won Coach of the Year in 220 magazine like 6 times. Incredible guy. And he was a tutor on the level 3 course as well. So luckily I was in contact with him and he said he'd come on the show. So we've had some really interesting guests. And like I say, I just come away every time totally buzzing, like having just listened to these people.
Amazing. I imagine it's so nice to really kind of pick up things and learn and kind of hear all the inspirational stories behind them as well. With, you know, behind every lesson there's someone who's gone through something that's taught them that, and then they've shared on that knowledge, which is always really nice to hear from a podcast, especially when you're half dying through a training session on Zwift. So
yeah,
very much highly appreciated. Okay, so my next question is a little bit different for you compared to the other ones. And if people look at, and obviously go back to the start of your podcast, they might notice that your first episode might not be up. Is there a little story behind that one?
There is actually. Like I actually said earlier on, we very quickly pivoted away from where we started, and I'm not embarrassed about where we started, but that first episode, Sam, George and we all agreed it didn't stand up to the scrutiny, or it didn't stand up to the standards that we wanted from our podcast. We didn't have a guest on our first episode. It was more about introducing ourselves, and it was, when I listened back, or when we listened back, we were like, this isn't what we want to be. And if anyone went to our podcast and was like, well, I'll start at the start, it would put more people off than it would have drawn people in, we thought. So we were just like, right, we'll win that, because then our first real podcast was John Connolly, who's one of my really good mates and a really good ultra runner. And we thought, okay, we'll just start with that. But yes, you're right. There is a missing episode, isn't there?
Yeah, I honestly thought there was maybe just something wrong with my Spotify account. I was like, hang on, I've missed one. What's gone on here? But no, actually, it turns out that you just kind of start from episode 2, which is really nice.
Messy, right?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's just life, really, isn't it?
Indeed.
Yeah, I mean, you've kind of said a lot about the podcast and pretty much answered the majority of my questions within about one question each. So I think the last one's just going to be going on to find out where can people find your podcast, and is there anything else you want to share or talk about it?
Well, it's on. I think it's on all major podcasting platforms. It's called Fitness Freaks, and it comes out. I usually put it out on a very early Friday morning. Don't ask me why. To me, it made sense at the time, and I'm a big believer in consistency. So once you start something, you just stick with it. In terms of the expectation people have around when it comes out, I think I was thinking. I put out a tutorial on YouTube on Wednesday, and I put out a video on Sunday. So Friday's that middle ground.
Yeah.
And if I put it out early, people can pick it up on Friday morning and listen to it if they're commuting or whatever. I think that was the thinking behind it. But yeah, I think it's one of those. I'm not very good at marketing myself. Like, I'm not very good at pushing it. Like, we have an Instagram page called Fitness Freaks, but all three of us are rubbish at being on it. We kind of do something once a week just to say that the new podcast is up because, well, George is in the African bush at the moment. He's a captain in the army, so he's working out there, and Sam and I are just rubbish. So we don't push it, but it's there in case anyone ever finds it and wants to learn from it. And you can kind of find it through the YouTube channel as well. I allude to it or talk about it on YouTube. But no, I mean, I think, like I say, it's a weird one. All I want to do is reach more people and help people, but I'm rubbish at the actual pushing myself to do that.
But yeah, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to me. It's just been nice kind of hearing a little bit more about the podcast and the summary and all bits like that, and just having the opportunity to chat to you. I'm hugely appreciative of you taking the time.
Well, thanks for all you do. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for everything you do as well. I think it needs all of us, banging the drum for what we're passionate about to get people involved, right? I think all of our aims, every single one of us, is more to inspire more people to do what we do because we love it and we want them to love it, right?
Yeah.
And so you do the same as me and keep banging that drum as well,
So that's the end of the podcast mini-series. I chatted to 4 very wonderful guest speakers. It was fantastic speaking to them, and I'm hugely appreciative of everybody that I spoke to. If you want to find out more about the Fitness Freaks podcast and where you can find out some more of their details, then do go and head to the description below. And don't forget to go and check out the other chats that I had with everybody else as well. And go and check out their podcasts. They are brilliant to listen to, whether you're running, riding, walking, or you're just trying to kill a few hours in the evening. If you enjoyed this podcast mini-series, then please do let me know your thoughts. Drop them in the comments below, or go and head to the Bikes and Laces website where you can find our email address and you can contact us via email. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter as well to let us know your thoughts. Make sure you give this video a great big thumbs up, as it really helps us get it out to other people who like similar content. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you can stay up to date with all of the content coming out every single week.